Welcome back to the Big Fellas podcast. It's Mark here today, and one of my favourite types of episodes, we have a loser story and one closely affiliated with Man v Fat. As you know, we are big advocates of Man v Fat here, and if you listen to the last episode, you will know that we were up for an award. And the great news is we won. So last Saturday, I was at the Man v Fat Awards and picked up Media Mogul for my work here on the podcast. Of course, this goes out for both myself and for Darren. Darren couldn't make it, unfortunately, much like today. But yeah, well, it was a cracking evening, and it was a great night to celebrate successes of the Man v Fat community. And with that, we have a guest this evening who was leader or captain of Team of the Season, Mike Palmer. Hello, Mike. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it was nice to see you on Saturday at Villa Park.
Hello, Mike. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great. Thank you, mate. It's nice to see you pick up the award on Saturday. It was really nice to see you win that. It's a contested award. Lots of winners and nominees in the room. So yeah, it's really, really good to see you. But I'm really good myself personally.
Thank you. And congratulations to you too and picking up Team of the Season.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about your team. Let's start there.
Yeah, Forest Green Leftovers. We're from Nuneaton. So if you don't know where Nuneaton is, I describe it as sort of between Birmingham and Leicester. We're quite a small league. We've kind of fluctuated between 3 and 4 teams for a long time now. At that point, we were 4 teams, and we went kind of like undefeated in the league. I think we lost 1 game actually, so not quite undefeated. Big weight loss. Couple of guys really nailed on the weight loss, myself included, which I'm sure we'll get to. Football-wise, stability, and I think that was probably one of the reasons why I put the nomination in, because we ended up with a lot of the guys that maybe aren't necessarily that keen on being down there. They were struggling to sort of fit in socially. They weren't necessarily the best footballers, and our league struggles sometimes with that balance between weight loss and football, and people trying to maybe come down and be a sort of big fish in a small pond, where maybe they're quite close to the BMI limit. They've lost a lot of weight in the past, but yeah, we had a couple of guys in our team that maybe hadn't found their place previously, and we made a home for them. They got on the pitch and they got on off the pitch, which is what it was all about. So that was one of the reasons why the nomination went in, I think. And those guys, not to call them out personally, but they're not in our team anymore. Teams have been redrafted and they're like really settled in the league. So I think just having a bit of support was what they needed to help them through. So yeah, it was good to win it. But for me, it was important that it wasn't just we weren't turning up battering everybody like each week on the pitch. It was a real kind of solid all-round effort from everybody. And we had someone hitting their BMI. I think I got to like my 40% milestone. So we had some big wins across the board there. So yeah, it was a nice team, a good mix.
Oh, fantastic. And I think you do need that. For the best teams, it does take all sorts. I'm sure we've all played in a Man v Fat league where there's one team that just sort of runs over everyone, and you almost lose a bit of respect for them, because I'm just thinking, if that's what you're here for, just go and join Power League.
Yeah, exactly.
And play there, you need that mix of ability. You need those guys that are weighing in and getting the losses, because quite frankly, they're more valuable than twinkle toes on the pitch. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes we have a couple of lads in our league that perhaps struggle with the football side of it, but they still come and weigh in. And they're doing that commitment for their team. And I've got a lot of time for that. I'd much rather have somebody who's, they're going to come in, they're going to contribute off the pitch, particularly socially as well, kind of in WhatsApp groups and things like that. But maybe they're not able to contribute on the pitch because they're carrying a tiny knock, or they've come just on work straight, and they're not able to get on the pitch on time. So I've got a lot of time for people like that are willing to put it in both sides of it. I don't want someone just turning up and smashing balls in left, right, and centre and just scoring goals for fun if they're not going to bother with the weight loss or get involved in challenges and things. So I think you need that nice mix.
Definitely. It almost, I think, kind of puts people off if there's too much of those kind of like ballers, shall we say, who just focus purely on the football and nothing else. It does put others off, and it's right that you kind of have that mix of ability, shall we say.
Yeah.
So Team of the Season then. Tell us more. Did you expect to get it? How did?
No, absolutely not. I think when the awards came out and they were at Villa Park, we were like, oh, we'll go. It's only around the corner. Like, I think one of our lads actually lives literally around the corner. For us, it's a 25-minute journey, like a couple of junks up the M6. So like, oh, we'll go. It'll be a nice like day out. We'll just pop along. And then when the tickets came out and I saw the price, so I'm not just throwing my big fan of the bus there, but it wasn't cheap. It wasn't a cheap night. I think 50, 60 quid or whatever it was. We thought, oh, there won't be many people going. Like if someone from, I don't know, Glasgow's nominated, I don't think they're going to come to it. So I thought, we might have a chance of winning here if we're the only people in the room. And then when they did obviously we were like award 14, I think, out of 18. And as they were going round, every time they announced one of the nominees in the categories, everybody cheered. And I was like, oh, they must be in the room. Like there was a lot of people in the room more than I anticipated. So obviously when it came to us, we were like, oh, if there's other people in the room that are here, and I think Paisley were in our category, Bridgend were in our category, I was like, we're not going to win this. Obviously we weren't on the beers or anything, so we were quite tame, we were quite quiet. And then when our name got read out, I think the two lads I was with, I don't know if anyone sort of watching or listening saw it, but they almost dived under the table. Like the black tablecloth was coming over their head and that sort of dragged them out and be like, come on lads, up we go. Like, I think one lad was in utter shock. I think his anxiety just took over and he was like, I can't do it, Mark. And I was like, come on, we'll go together. Another lad was just crying tears of like laughter because he didn't think we'd win. So yeah, to say we didn't expect to win is an understatement. And then yeah, to meet Jeff Hurst was great. Like to get the award from him and stuff was a nice touch. And then yeah, to have a microphone shoved in front of your face to say a few words when you maybe not got a bit of Dutch courage, which you might normally be used to, was a bit of a challenge to get your words across without saying something you shouldn't, or just try and be respectful of the night and stuff. When there was like, there was such good winners in the room, some with like really like heartfelt stories about why they'd won, and especially the things around the community and the unsung heroes and the coaches and all that kind of stuff. And then like, we're just a team playing on a Wednesday night for an hour and just trying to do our best. And then to then go up and win it, it was interesting to say the least. We definitely weren't expecting it. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, likewise, I wasn't expecting it either. And I think what it was, well, just to bring up a point you raised, was being at Villa Park, you'd expect lads from Nuneaton to be there, but we had lads from Bridgend in Wales, we had lads from Swansea, we had lads from Paisley in Glasgow. And yeah, even on my table, we had a gentleman who'd flown in from Florida. Yeah. And so like, wow. And this guy, Antonio, big up Antonio, what a guy. Quite the character. And I thought, wow, well, if he's flying in from America, I've got no hope here. So I kind of was like, yeah, it's nice to be nominated. It's going to be a great night. And yeah, but then yeah, to have Jeff Hurst read my name out, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, imagine that was great for you. Like, did he read Big Fairs or did he read your name? Like, that must have been really nice.
Yeah. So,
really nice
obviously
feeling.
Richard read out the nominees and sort of said a bit about sort of each of the nominee and what they do and everything. And then, so Jeff Hurst sort of did that, and he says he's obviously well done on the podcast, which was a nice touch. And and then after that, you get ushered out pitch side, don't you? And then you've got like an interview, like you've been like post-match interview almost, wasn't it?
Yeah. We were up against a team with quite an interesting name that I would have quite liked Jeff Hurst to read out. I don't know if you can remember it, but it was Puventus. So I would have quite liked Jeff Hurst to peel back the card and read out the word Puventus. I think that would have been quite interesting. And these Forest Green leftovers was a bit of a safe name. So I think I would have probably given up the award just to hear Sir Jeff announce that. That would have been I'm sure he could take that one with him and tell the grandkids about that one, I'm sure.
Oh, mate, yeah. But no, yeah, it was great. And to meet Sir Jeff Hurst, like I said, that was an honour in itself. And I think that was a draw for me. I think when I saw the awards night and that was going to be the guest of honour, I thought, sod it, I'm going to go just for that.
Yeah.
So, and it was great to hear from Sir Jeff and to sort of obviously, you can tell he's well versed in the after dinner speaking world.
Of course, yeah.
He knew his stories. He was able to tell them really well. He had some real funny quips in there as well. And I thought he was cracking. So it was a really, really good guest. Did you go last year?
No, we didn't. So I was actually at the Biggest Loser game last year.
Yeah, I can see that in the background.
Yeah, so I was at the Biggest Loser game last year and I didn't really understand the awards. I didn't kind of get them. I think probably in hindsight, we actually had a better team last year instead of our team this year, but we kind of didn't understand how the nominations worked and we thought it kind of maybe came from our coach and stuff like that. So I didn't really follow much of the awards. I think my brain was very much in Biggest Loser. It was a challenge of mine to get to that game. I really wanted to get there. So once it got there, it was like, right, that's my big day out. And then obviously the awards follows the following day and it was in London and it's not a million miles away, certainly not Florida. But didn't go last year. Obviously, didn't have any sort of skin in the game last year, but kind of wish I'd gone because I quite like the little kind of interview they did with the guys who were at like the Biggest Loser game and stuff like that. So I would have quite fancied having a chat about that with some of those
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, no, I went last year. Richard invited us down, said, look, you're welcome to come down and come and cover it if you want. And we used it probably more last year. We were probably about sort of 6 months into
Mm.
the podcast. So it was more, I thought we can go network and meet a few people and see what they want. But it was all outdoors last year, kind of under
Yeah, I
like this
heard that. Yeah.
marquee type thing. Great guests as well there. It was Paul Merson.
Mm.
So yeah, he had some great insight. But no, I preferred this one because it was a proper sit down. It felt
Yeah.
like an awards dinner. It
Yeah,
felt
I
like a
agree.
proper
Yeah.
awards do, if you know what I mean. And but no, it was a cracking night. And I think we'll just sort of give out my thanks to sort of Richard Crick and his team at Man v Fat. It was a cracking night. They did a sterling job on it. But yeah, and I said there's some great winners and like I said, you team of the year for yourself. I'll tell you what, the one bit that stood out for me was the mental health video.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
Because
really,
I found that the evening was, as you'd expect, was a proper celebration, real lot of laughs, a lot of high energy and everything. And then they played the mental health video, and the whole room just stopped, didn't it?
yeah.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah, and it was quite emotional watching it. I was really sort of like kind of taken aback by it all, if you know.
Yeah. I think it hits home for a lot of people. I think particularly with Man v Fat, I mentioned it with the team of the year and the players we had. It's you don't always think about just the weight loss element. Sometimes it's the just getting out of the house or having a free hour where you've not got to worry about what's going on at home or what's going on at work. And I think those kind of things really resonate with me. That was one of my big things when I first started dropping the weight was actually I can get out of the house and I've got a free hour where it's just my time. And it's not, I don't have major demands at home, but it gave me that chance to be out of the house. And I think that was one of the guys in the video that you could really, really tell he benefited massively from just having a clear headspace for an hour and being around a group who weren't going to bother him or ask him questions about how he was feeling and that kind of stuff. And it was just in his place, and that was that. So I mean, it was a really, really nice video. I don't know if they've shared it wider again since, but yeah, certainly it brought the mood down in the right way. I think is the right way to say it. So, it kind of toned it down, and I think people then realised why they were in the room as well.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly there, Mike. Yeah, and like I said, I've had my own mental health struggles over the years. A really rough divorce and a rough breakup of a second relationship, and you know what? And VFAT was kind of like almost a beacon of light in that time. It was just that time, that half hour, that hour a week where you could just get out and just focus on winning a football match or having a kick about with your mates rather than any of the bullshit going on at home. And so
I agree.
it's almost a byproduct of Man v Fat, but it's something that is so clearly there. It's worth mentioning, I guess, isn't it? So and I think it's interesting. We should say it's currently National Mental Health Awareness Week, I believe, is it not?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we are putting something out on our social media channel about that this week. But it's huge. Anyway, Mike, I want to move it on a bit and just talk about you and your achievements. So you've lost a shit ton of weight, haven't you? Tell us where you were and where you are now.
Yeah, so I have I didn't pre-warn you about this, but I have a really X Factor-esque sob story. So
brilliant. Should be good for a podcast.
Yeah. So I actually started a new job a couple of months ago, and someone mentioned something. We were in passing. We've gone out for lunch, and I kind of like avoided like the subways and things like that. And someone said, "Oh, just get a subway, might you be okay?" And I kind of explained what had happened, and they said, "Oh, it's a bit X Factor that, Mark." I said, "Yeah, but it's the truth." So, we say it how it is. So, yeah, if we go back, so I've lost over 50 kgs with Man v Fat and around 20 kilos before I joined Man v Fat, and that all happened January 2024 was when that first started happening. And the reason for my weight loss was my old man, my dad. He got diagnosed with cancer for the second time. He's a big lad like me. I don't know if you insert photos into your clips, but there's plenty of photos of me as a big lad. And my dad was a big guy, and basically they said, we need to operate on you, but you're too big, we can't do it. And I was sat in the room with him, and I just was like, shit, that can't be me. I can't get in a situation where my weight has had a impact on the ability for something to happen. And I think that was the sort of key point. That was the telling point for me. So from that point on, I was like, sort of in my own head, I was like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to try and do something. That Christmas, my parents had Christmas dinner together for the first time in about 20 years because of my dad's ongoing health issues. He's all good, by the way.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, he's fine. But my parents came together for Christmas, and I was like, do you know what? If they're able to do that, having been divorced for over 20 years, I'm able to do this. So from that Christmas, I said it around the Christmas table with all the family, and they all kind of laughed at me as I was probably down in Budweiser's and had the biggest plate of turkey you've ever seen. And yeah, from January, I just started walking everywhere. Yeah, walk to the shop if I needed something. I'd walk for 15 minutes and then turn around because it's about all I could do. So I sort of got 30 minutes walking, and I wasn't aiming for a step goal or anything like that. But yeah, slowly the weight started to come off. Obviously, I was a big guy, of 170, 175 kilos. So just
Wow.
putting down the fork and dropping fizzy pop and stuff, I started dropping kilos quite quickly alongside walking. And then, yeah, got to the point where I felt like I could probably join Man v Fat at that stage. I'd seen it before. I dabbled in it a few years previously, but kind of didn't really see the benefits to it. At that point, I was probably about 140, 150 kilos. And then, yeah, went to Man v Fat. Awful, big, heavy, like tackling everybody like horrifically because I just only benefit I had was my size that I could just push people out the way. And then yeah, I think I got my 5% in about 2 weeks. 10% was in, I don't know, 6. Obviously, then I couldn't win anymore because you can only get 2 because they want it to be natural. And I actually didn't lose any more. And then yeah, just eventually just kept like chugging. I think my average like weight loss was like 1.8 kilos a week for about 35 to 40 weeks, and then sort of slowly got
Wow.
down to that point where I was like, yeah, this is good. I think I had a good run where I'd not lost, not gained. Obviously, did all my tracking, did everything that all the textbooks tell you to do, and then slowly started to see the difference. Obviously, through the percentage photos that were taken at the club. And, at one point, I really, really wanted to get in that Biggest Loser game. So I just sort of said, what does it take? And they said, we can't tell you. We can't tell you how much you need to lose or what the dates are because people fad and crash diets to get to a point and stuff like that. So I just kept plugging along, and then I didn't get in, which was absolutely gutting. And Carl rang me. He was our sort of like Midlands area, I think it's regional coordinator or whatever his fancy job title is. Carl rang me and said, Mark, I'm really sorry, mate. I know you really wanted it. You were literally like one place off, so off the cut off, which
Ah.
I don't know if that made me feel any better or not. And, absolutely my head was gone. I didn't go to the next session. And so I just gutted. It was something I'd really worked towards. It was like a personal target I'd set myself. And about a week later, Carl rang me and he said, "Have you checked your emails?" And I said, "I'm at work, mate. I've not done it." So check your emails, and yeah, obviously one person had dropped out, so I was the next one on the list. So I kind of
Ah.
got in as the first reserve, which I'll still take that as a win.
Yeah,
Carl pretty much said
definitely.
to me, "You'd be in next season probably, but you were just like one shy this year." So I was really happy to get into that, and yeah, just kind of been really consistent. So yeah, that's my X Factor sob story, which has been shared many a time. I think Man v Fat really like that story. They've shared it on their socials and things. So yeah, to
Yeah,
get to where I'm
definitely.
at now, it's a game changer. I see people I've not seen for 18 months and they can't believe I bumped into somebody in Asda the other day in the freezer aisle, and I was like, "Oh, you know, all right?" And she was like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "It's Mike." She didn't even realise. So that's nice to see that and to get that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sort of really happy with where I've got to at this point.
Wow. And I guess when it affects your family, what more motivation do you need, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone says, being overweight impacts your health, but you don't like, I personally didn't really see it, at that stage. I was sort of like 35, 36, didn't really see it at that point in my life. I thought, I'm just a big guy, like a beer, have a kebab on the way home after a night out on a Friday, that kind of vibe. I didn't really see how it was impacting my health. Like, I was fairly healthy. Every time I went to the doctors, with anything silly, I was like, "Any worries about me, doc?" And he was like, "Well, you're a little bit overweight, mate." And I'm like, "All right, cool, no problem." Didn't really see it. And then obviously, yeah, when there was that direct impact, like a physical impact on something happening, it was just like a light bulb. Everybody's had them. Anybody who's lost weight's
Mm.
had that light bulb moment, and it was a real light bulb for me. And for about 2 weeks after that, I was having kind of like weird, like vivid dreams of like having to go for like an MRI scan and being taken to the local zoo. This is a true story. Like I would like wake up and be like, I'd be on a bed in the zoo, and I'd be like, this can't go on, and it cannot happen.
Mm.
And I spoke to my partner, and she was like, "Look, if you want to go for it, you go for it. I'll back you whatever you want to do. Like if you tell me you're going on the cabbage soup diet, I'll do it with you." She was great. She sort of backed me every way and got involved. And then yeah, obviously after that. after that weight first started slowly dropping, I just felt more confident in myself. Like, so then I was like, oh, I'll go in the gym now because I don't feel like the huge massive guy in the gym. I feel like just somebody who's trying to lose a few pounds rather than the big fella like sweating in the corner kind of thing. So yeah, then obviously I went to the gym, and I'll be honest, one of the things I really enjoyed doing was like, I really like a spin class. So I found that like really, really interesting. At the point I was doing like 2 or 3 a week. My gym offers them like a big virtual studio. So, they're like every sort of like 2 hours, it's just on a big loop on the big screen. And I'd pick the times when there was nobody else in there. I'd go at like 8:20 on a Friday night when everyone else is out doing other stuff. And I'd have like this whole studio to myself, and I could just do it without any worry. And I still do them now to this day. And I find them, again, we were talking about headspace and release. They're a really nice opportunity to do that. So I've not just focused on the football. I've not just focused on the food. I've done quite a lot of things. I've tried to kind of help myself in as many ways as I can, to be honest.
Fair play. So let's just sort of talk about in your younger years, Mike. What were you like as a kid? And were you a big lad then, or was it something that
No,
kind of came up later in life?
no, like a lot of people who play man v fat football. I played football like 6 days a week, 7 days a week as a kid up until about 12 or 13. And then I think I just kind of, other things were of more interest to me than football. I'm sure other people will tell you the same. It was drinking on the park, girls, going out, doing other stuff. And football then, I used to play on a Saturday and a Sunday. So like you train a couple of times a week with your team. You drop the Saturday, just play on the Sunday. Then eventually you drop the Sunday, and you just do like casual five-a-side with your mates. You drop that. So I think at that point, like that's when the weight slowly started to pile on. Then obviously, yeah, went to uni, played American football at uni. Um, I would say to quite a good level. And to be honest, in the position I played in American football, it was frowned upon if you tried to lose weight. They wanted you to be big, they were bulky, heavy, strong. I played as an offensive lineman, where it was my responsibility to stop fancy quarterback getting sacked. So the bigger I was, the stronger I was, the easier it was for people to harder it was, sorry, for people to get past me. So yeah, sort of that period of my life was when I probably really, really went from kind of fat, chubby to overweight and causing a problem at that stage. Yeah, younger years, no, like played football all the time, ran around as a kid, and then yeah, just kind of fell off as I got involved in other things, and yeah, pretty much stopped playing football. I never played 11-a-side football from probably the age of 12 or 13 onwards. Had a bit of a brief like flirtation with 7-a-side at like 18, 19, a couple of years before I went to uni, just playing a couple of times a week. I was a really good goalie, still am to this day, I'd like to say. But yeah, probably those uni years is what pushed me into that. And obviously when I was at uni, it was drinking every night, awful, awful diet, you know, you're not cooking when you're in your uni flat. You're probably just getting takeaway and stuff. So yeah, those
Yeah.
years really probably is what impacted me if I look back on it.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to that. We had someone on here a few months back, and he basically said when he went to uni, it was that one moment in his life where you didn't have your parents there to tell you, right, that's enough.
Yeah,
You've had enough to eat now. Just leave it there. There
yeah,
wasn't anyone in that corner telling you that. And it was then a case of, well, you could have a salad for dinner or you could have a kebab. Well, there's a bit
yeah.
of salad on it, so that counts, does it?
Yeah, and you're in charge of your own shopping as well. Like, you
Yeah.
go to the shop, and it's, we were talking about this in the club the other day, that you sometimes, I'd grab a big, like, share bag of Doritos, and you just like smash it casually as you like sitting, having a chat in the flat.
Mm.
And then now looking back at that, you realize that big bag of Doritos is probably 600, 700 calories. And
Yeah.
the minute when you're eating 2,000 a day, and you think, I used to do a third of my calories on a bag of Doritos,
Yeah.
but you didn't look at that. You didn't have any constraint on it or any sort of reserve. You just did what you wanted to do. And I think that was probably one of the things that comes with being at uni, is like those restrictions are kind of taken away from you. You're your own person. You're trying to fit in as well. You're trying to go with the crowd. And I'm sure we all know, we've all got friends that can absolutely smash dominoes 10 days a week and gain like no weight or have anything. Everybody's got a mate that's like that.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
just go with the flow. So, I'm not one of them people. If I sniff a Ben and Jerry's, I feel like I put 3 kilos on. So, I'm just one of them people, I think, that,
Yeah.
food really sort of weighs heavily on me. And after, even now today, I'm sitting around 100 kilos. Even today, I'm really careful with what I eat, and overeating and trying to avoid certain foods, because I know if I've had a milkshake, like a McDonald's milkshake, I could have 10 of them in a night. They are just like heavenly for me. They are one of my Achilles heels, to be
Yeah.
honest.
We all have a cheap meal, should we say, or
Yeah.
a favourite, and that would be yours then, would it? A McDonald's milkshake,
Yeah,
yeah?
I think McDonald's milkshake is up there. It was Domino's pizza for me. I actually looked at it about 18 months ago. I went on my bank and searched Domino's, and it was just like a trail of orders. And, looking back on it now, the amount of money we used to spend on
Yeah.
takeaways was just astronomical. Having cut that away to a certain extent, I'm not saying I've never had a Domino's since I've lost weight. That'd be, telling an outright lie. But the levels which we was having it, I'm surprised they didn't send somebody around knocking on the door to ask if I was still if I was still in the area or if something had happened, because they lost their best customer, probably my local Domino's, because of the amount that we'd stopped eating. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
Domino's was probably my biggest cheat meal.
You knew you'd have a problem, I guess, when you became sort of pally with the delivery guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had that in a previous life, shall we say, and the delivery guy would come over and you're like, I remember just walking through town once. I was like, Ahmed, how are you doing, mate? All right. And you're just like,
Yeah.
yep. This probably isn't a flex to sort of like just be spotting
definitely not.
your delivery
Definitely
driver,
not.
mate.
No, if you know Bossman's name in the kebab shop, like that's you've taken that too far, I think.
Yeah, no, it really is. Oh man, but yeah, no, we've all been there, and yeah, I think I still have my sort of cheats and that, and probably the thing I struggle with is peanut butter,
Really?
and
Okay.
I still have it now, and I make better choices. Like I have the 100% natural stuff these days,
Mm.
but I could have a jar and just put a spoon in and just eat it.
Wow. Yeah.
That was my one, but
I'm a big fan of like Biscoff. So if I ever get a sniff of like a Biscoff's bread or something like that, I've got to just walk the opposite way, because I've done it. I've sat there and done whole tubs of that before, just sitting there eating it. And you've got a problem when you just go and buy like the icing. You can buy like the tubbed icing and things like that. That's when you've probably got a problem, and somebody should step in, I think. And that, to be honest with you, that's something that, like, I said this to my partner the other day. I said, we were looking at like progress photos and stuff, and I said, why did you never say anything to me? Like, she's not big at all. And obviously you look at the previous photos of me compared to now, and I just think, why did nobody ever say anything to me? And that kind of sometimes weighs on my mind, is that, people go, oh, you look great. You must feel so much better. You've lost blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking, why didn't anyone ever, like, I've got friends. Why didn't anyone just pull me and say, Mike, come on, it's too far now. You need to have a look at this. But I find that with like weight and food, people don't do that. If I was doing that with, I don't know, cocaine or heroin, people would step in and do something. They would pull you and say that.
That's a good point, isn't it?
With other drugs, but I think with food and weight loss, people just kind of leave you to it and don't really get involved. There was a few people that I saw on social media that inspired me, and that's as close as I probably got. In terms of having somebody say that to me, because I was seeing somebody else's journey, or seeing, and that's why I always like volunteer to do these kind of things with yourself, Mark. Like, it's because if one person sees that and they go, well, yeah, well, that guy can do it, I can do it as well. I just think maybe if a couple of people had said, come on, you should have a go at this, maybe I would have got there sooner rather than having to find it out myself on my own.
Yeah. You make a point. Like when I lost my weight, I can remember my mum saying to me, goes, yeah, I'm glad you made the decision to lose the weight, because I was really wanting to say something. And I was kind of like, well, why didn't you? But it does feel like weight and your sort of personal health it's just that bit more personal, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
And I think you bang on with the point that if I was sniffing gear, I'd have people banging at my door saying, sort your shit out, mate.
Yeah.
But eating a meal deal and fish and chips and a McDonald's breakfast is almost considered normal.
Yeah.
And
but I think the things, they go hand in hand. People who are doing things like what you mentioned, that there's a cost associated with it, and that they're chasing that money, and they're selling things like, I just mentioned the amount that I used to spend on Domino's. I'm sure I probably sacrificed other things in my life at that point to not, I would have got 50 quid left in the bank this week before payday, I'm gonna have a Domino's, when maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have put it on something else, or and it's that same vibe. And I think, like you say, if people don't get involved in it, they don't step in, and I think they almost see it as kind of like your problem. It's not impacting anybody else, which is probably true. If I'm overweight, it doesn't really impact anyone else, but I've seen now firsthand it does. I don't want to call my dad out, but his being overweight impacted on me. That was the point, that the catalyst for me. And when I got asked to share this story with Man Be Fat, asked me to share it with the papers and stuff, I rang my dad and said, Dad, I'm going to say this. Are you okay with it? And he was like, absolutely, no problem. I get it. Like, being in that room with me is what made you get to this point. So you've got to share that story. And I said, they're going to put a picture of us together, Dad. And he was like, yeah, it's fine. I get it. Like, I'm happy with it. I understand why it's happened. He's like, I wish I was 30 years younger and had the same drive and the same like ability to do what you've done. So, but it does impact on other people, that's for sure.
God, yeah. And it's a story I've spoke about on here plenty of times. And one of my kind of catalysts, shall we say, was my eldest child, Blake, talking about me to his mates.
Mm.
And we're at a park or something, and he's playing with his mates, and he must have only been about 6, 7 at the time. And he's chatting to me, that's my dad over there. He's really lazy. And I'm like, oh, just a massive kick to the gut. And like, what do you say? I was genuinely like, I went super quiet and was like, just overthinking it for the rest of the day. I'm like, is that what my kid thinks of me?
Yeah.
I'm meant to be his hero. I'm meant to be his inspiration. This is wrong. And that was genuinely one of the things that really sort of got me to sort of take accountability and really, really kick on. And so much so, the day or the weekend that I started was his birthday party. And so we had, what I tell you, we had a little party at the rec centre, you know how it is, and you hire a room and then you put out all the finger food and that. Well, that was just, for me, was just finger food is like the worst thing for me because you just graze at it. There's no counting of calories. You could easily bosh sort of 600, 700, 800 calories in like half an hour without even thinking about it. And I remember it was his birthday party and it was like, I'm not touching a thing, to the point I was chopping up birthday cake and I had cream on my finger and I was like, I'm not even going to lick the cream off my finger.
Yeah. That's dedication, that is. If you're not doing that.
In that moment in time, I was so committed, and I'm like, yeah. And it was, and I don't know, maybe if Blake hadn't have said, "Dad, you're lazy," or this is my dad and he's lazy, maybe things have been different. But yeah, it is always, it's one of those things, a real catalyst, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, 100%.
So tell me, Mike, what's your diet look like these days then?
Pretty low calorie, somewhere around 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day. Typically, you want like a what I eat in a day kind of vibe. So yeah, usually like a sort of a porridge in the morning gives me kind of energy throughout the day. High protein, so anything I'll try and have is like high protein. So I'll have like a porridge and a protein shake in the morning. Typically, I'll go to the gym in the morning as well, so that kind of go hand in hand. Lunch, I'm a bit of a lunch avoider, to be honest. I find lunch quite challenging if I'm in the office at work or on the road. I hate a meal deal because I just think it's just such a waste of calories. So I'm a bit of a lunch avoider. If I'm going to have a lunch, I'll try and have some some chicken or some cheese, something quite high protein if I can just grab something on the go like that. And then, evening meals pretty much where most of my calories come from. So I'll have, like some sort of like grilled chicken with a flatbread and salad, maybe a slight sauce, salmon, turkey with rice, that kind of vibe. It's like super boring. I'm a bit boring in terms of the food. It's kind of really textbook sort of low calorie, high protein food. I have a massive sweet tooth, so I always make sure to get some sort of like as close to a healthy or high protein dessert in as I possibly can, because I just feel that stops me going to the sweet drawer or looking in the cupboard for like cookies or chocolate bars or something like that. So I'll always try and do that, and I'll typically like smash that straight after my food. So if I've eaten at 7, I'm having that dessert at like 7:15, and then that's me done. Then I'll like close down for the night. So yeah, super kind of really boring porridge or a protein bar in the morning, skip lunch, and then like a high protein sort of calorie dense meal in the evening with either rice or some sort of like flatbread or pita or bagel or something along those lines. Really boring. I live such a boring life now, is what I would say. And I share photos of my meals in the group WhatsApp with the lads. They must just think, what's this guy doing? Like, he's so boring. But the proof's in the pudding for me. Like, it's there. It's the weight staying off. I've had a bit of a fluctuation, but it's usually around social events and stuff. But yeah, the weight staying off and where we're at by just sticking to what I know, which is low calorie. I've like dabbled with when I've needed to. I had like a wedding to go to, so I needed to like probably try and shift a few extra pounds. Did a bit of keto and stuff like that, which I really liked. Keto kind of works for me. Again, it's high protein, meats, fats, simple, but it's just not sustainable. As soon as you come off it, I was like 3 kilos back on straight away, just because the water changes and the water weight and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my boring basic diet that I eat on a day-to-day basis.
Fair enough. You still have your cheat meals and still sort of enjoy yourself from time to time?
Not as much as we used to. I'm not kind of one of these guys that's like, we'll have a cheat meal this day. I know a lot of our league have like cheat meals after weighing days. So, like your football day, they'll typically do it then. If I'm ever going to do it, probably then. The only real time it'll happen is if, maybe the circumstances. So tomorrow we've got an 11-a-side game tomorrow evening, and we're travelling from like Leicester to Gillingham for that game tomorrow evening. We're playing at Gillingham FC. So we're leaving at like 1 o'clock. We're getting back at midnight. I'm under no illusions that probably the lads that we're going with are going to go, can we stop at Burger King or McDonald's on the way back at 11 p.m. at night? And do you know what? If the circumstances like require, yeah, I'll probably jump on something then at that point. But yeah, I don't necessarily go and chase like a cheat meal or anything like that.
No, that's fair enough. And I think that's probably the best way to go about it is like life's going to happen. And so
Yeah,
there's going to be a point where, like, yeah, it's you haven't eaten all day, you're stuck on a motorway and you pull into a services, and the only option is KFC or Burger King.
yeah,
Fair enough. And I guess if you've got to have that mindset that these things are going to creep up and catch you out from time to time, if you're then going to start saying, well, I'm going to plan cheat meals on top of that, then you're almost
yeah.
compounding the problem then, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. To me, I sometimes I'll look at the calories and I'll look at the cost, and I think sometimes, you know, if I'm at a service station and I've been out on the road all day at work, it might cost me like twice as much to try and eat healthier than it would just to grab something convenient. And you know, if I'm going to do that, I'll typically I'll ditch the fries out of the McDonald's meal deal. I probably won't even bother having them. I'll just stick to, you know, the burger because I'm probably getting more out of it than wasting it on fries and things like that. So, but yeah, especially at services, you know, you can drop like a chicken Caesar salad wrap and it'll cost you twice as much as getting like a portion of chicken from McDonald's or KFC. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a tight ass, to be honest. I try and weigh up calories versus cost.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the one thing with takeaways. They're getting expensive now as well, aren't they?
Yeah, everything's just it just bites you, and I think that definitely for me is one of the key benefits is how much I've managed to save on takeaways, and then as a family, because you know if everyone knows I might can't have one, then it's kind of like, oh, we won't bother having one either as a family, you know, and the kids don't get one and stuff. So you know, maybe there's additional benefits that you don't kind of see and think about that, you know, those I'm not maybe inflicting my diet on those guys either. You know, if I was wanting a KFC and a McDonald's every night, they're probably just going to go with the flow. Maybe that's what happened to me as a teenager. I don't know. I'm not blaming my family for my mistakes, but I'm sure it probably contributed at that point. Life hits you hard sometimes, you know, if you're busy. Both my parents worked growing up. I'm sure putting food on the table was like probably second or third, you know, it was trying to put a roof over their head and make sure everyone was safe first and then food after that. And you just got what it was in the freezer at that point, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can relate to that. And yeah, it's probably quite similar to my own upbringing, I guess. Okay, just moving on a bit. So you obviously you play in Man v Fat, but you also run the 11-a-side league. Is that right?
Yeah, so Nuneaton Man v Fat, we set up an 11-a-side team about this time last year, and we were intending on joining like a Midlands-based football league that was being run by one of the guys after Man v Fat had kind of walked away from 11-a-side football sort of 18 to 24 months ago. They sort of said, we're not going to run 11-a-side anymore. So it was kind of being coordinated by a chap in the Midlands, but it kind of wasn't all encompassing. And I'm very much a kind of, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it properly. So at that point, the league looked like it was probably going to fold. So we'd gone through all this effort. We'd recruited players. We'd bought a kit. We'd got sponsors. You know, we'd done all this work, and then the league we were planning on intending on joining was going to collapse. So at that point, a chap called Andy messaged me and said, look, would you be interested in like helping run the 11-a-side team? I was actually playing for Leicester Man v Fat 11-a-side because you could just kind of cross. It wasn't restricted. We didn't have one at the time. So I'd played in the league the year previous, but then set up the very non-Eton team. So yeah, you know, my background is like events and IT and websites and stuff. So I was like, I'm sure I can do this well. I'm sure I can like configure the league, can look at the teams, we can have some divisions going. So at that point, we kind of pulled everyone together. There was like a league admin. Every club was in there. There's about 6 clubs, I think, at the time. And that covers, I would say, Worcester all the way over to Boston and Lincoln. So if you think about it on the map, it's that full stretch of the Midlands area.
Yeah.
And
I used to play
logistically,
in the
that's
Peterborough leagues. I think we were
okay.
part of
Yeah,
that
so
one.
Peterborough in our league as well. So
Yeah.
we covered that, and we decided to give it another go. We said, myself and Andy said, we'll run the league, the two of us. So we built a website, we branded it. So we're the Midlands Fitness Football League, so the MFFL. And yeah, we got 26 teams involved, literally from the breadth of the Midlands. And we had a West Championship division, which covered pretty much most of Birmingham. Those guys very, very lucky. They were all very condensed and on top of each other. And then we had an East, which covered, you know, Nuneaton were in there. We had Burton, Derby, Nottingham, Nottingham weren't in it. They've joined this year. Over to Lincoln, Boston, and Peterborough. And then we had a development division as well, which we decided to just kind of put together for those teams that were either new or upcoming, or they were a second team of a team in the previous first division. And those guys didn't play as many games. It was a bit more casual, designed to kind of get them in the league and involved. Then throughout the year, we ran a cup competition. So we ran a cup that covered everybody. So it was like the FA Cup effectively. Everybody was in the pot, all chucked in. Did a live stream of the first round of the cup draw, which we had quite a lot of viewers on, which was quite nice. So there's a lot of pressure on me to get that right. And then following that, because of the socials and the website and things, we had a lot of teams that weren't in the league previously asking us to join. So based on that, we've had about 6 new teams joining for next year. So we've had a rejig of the leagues. So going into next season, we've got more teams, and we've now got a Premiership in the East and a Premiership in the West, and then we've got a Championship in the East and a Championship in the West. So yeah, we've kind of got, and now we've got like a 2-tier structure, and we're going to have this cup competition in the middle that runs throughout the year. Obviously, first round losers go into a plate, so we have a kind of backup, like a League Cup type thing. So you kind of don't, it's not always the elite of the elite, and we stick to the Man v Fat kind of ethos. So we have three criteria to be involved. So current member of Man v Fat or any other equivalent weight loss football program, because there is a few sort of breakout ones dotted around. A previous 18-month lapse member. So we kind of put a time frame on it to kind of keep people involved that maybe were a member but aren't anymore because of financial or commitment issues. And then we have a BMI criteria, just like the Man v Fat program would have. And yeah, players have to register, they have to submit their weights, we review them, we say whether they can be accepted. And we quite often have to push back and ask for, photos of videos of people getting on scales or other teams to do a weigh-in for them and stuff like that. So we don't necessarily do a weigh-in on a day-to-day basis, on a game-by-game basis, but on a league-by-league basis, we have that. And that'll continue into next season. So we're very much at the ethos of what Man v Fat does, but on an 11-a-side structure. Next season, we'll have over 1,000 men involved, which is that magic number I've been chasing.
Wow.
We're capped out now. So we're at the semi-final stage of the Cup. So all the leagues are done. Just the semi-finals of the Cup are this weekend. And we're at 980 registered men this year. So it'd be nice to get to over 1,000 next year, which we will because of the additional teams.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that's a really nice number. And we've got our Cup final on the 30th of June at Kirby Muxloe. So we tried to get it at kind of a non-league ground this year. First time we've ever done it. Both cup finals on the same day. We've got sort of like non-league officials involved as well. So we're trying to make it a nice sort of like environment, family day. Tickets are on sale, just like a quid fee, just to effectively cover the admin of like the ticketing system, just so we know how many numbers are coming and things. But yeah, it's kind of growing and we're really happy with it. We're getting teams maybe coming slightly down from the north and maybe teams slightly coming up from the south that want to join as well.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be careful with the recruitment of teams to ensure that we don't kill the league by making people travel too far. So we've just onboarded Kidderminster.
Cornwall playing Sunderland.
No,
for example,
exactly. No, I can tell you now, it's bad enough getting teams to go from like Nottingham to Lincoln, and that's 40 miles.
I was offered the opportunity to play for the Peterborough. I think it was a development side, and it was away to Worcester.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
You know what? I can't, mate.
No, Ricky would have loved that, I'm sure.
Yes,
those kind of games.
Yeah. Ricky was signed up for it, and you know him. You know Ricky. Yeah, he's a good lad. He was my captain when I was in the Peterborough League. He was a good chap. But yeah, travel's been our.
So we did at the end of the season, we did a survey of all the players, of all the clubs. What do you want? Do you want competitive or do you want travel? Because what we could do is, Worcester. I know Tom at Worcester. He's a great lad. They're not the strongest side. Their closest teams are strong teams. Some of those guys like Oldbury, Redditch, they're really, really strong teams. They've got really good, strong core Man v Fat side, so they've got a big recruitment pool. It's, do you want to play locally where you travel 20 miles but get absolutely hammered every week? Or do you want to travel slightly further and it's a better standard that fits where you're at? So that's why I think some of the elite teams really wanted to push to like have a top tier Premier Division where, some of the East and West were joined together, but we're just not there yet, and we couldn't quite get it to work. Just from my own up Nuneaton, we decided to enter the Championship division. So we were a first year team. We could have took the easy route and took the Devs division and stayed low. We went for the top tier, and we ended up losing out the league title to Stoke on goal difference.
Ooh.
So yeah, that was a bit gutting on a personal basis that we lost out on that. But as a, reflect on it now, as a first year team, if you'd have said that to me in August last year, would you take that? We'd have gone, yeah, absolutely, no problem whatsoever. We'd be
Yeah.
really happy with that. So yeah, it's good. There's a lot of good guys involved, and like I say, the leagues are growing. Lots of teams now having development teams that then turn into kind of second teams or social teams that step up to development teams. So yeah, there's a lot of activity in the Midlands now, and I think the guys are really enjoying it. And I think it's a really good benefit for them to have a kind of organised structure that they can use. And we've had a few issues, a few disciplinary issues, and niggles and complaints about teams forfeiting and cancelling. But the league comes together as a group, and we run that pretty well. And yeah, the socials, the numbers track well on socials. It's good. I enjoy it. It can be a full-time job sometimes, as I'm sure
Yeah,
you're
I
probably
bet.
aware as well, like doing things like this. But yeah, it's been nice to do it, and I think that the league's in a good place, hopefully going forward.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. I think that's a good point to sort of round it up there, Mike. But yes, that's absolutely fantastic. And I didn't actually know that Man v Fat had stepped away from the 11er side. So to take it on is no mean feat. So honestly, credit to you. That's a heck of a job and a heck of a task. But to have such an established set up league is brilliant, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
And to achieve that as well within like what, little over 18 months after losing the weight.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot. So yeah, to run the league, I run the Nuneaton team, and also try and make sure that I'm in a good place physically, emotionally. It can be a challenge. So I've got some good friends around me that really, really support me. They know who they are. They're there for me, and I think having people like that around you is a huge benefit. And if anybody else out there thinks I'm their person, then I'm doing my job as well. You know what I mean? I'm there for them when they need it. That's why I get involved in this community, because without it, I would have just been a guy on his own trying to lose weight. I might have done it on my own, but I probably wouldn't have maintained it or been where I'm at today without having those good people around me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really grateful for some of those people.
Awesome. Okay then, Mike. So, 65 kilos lost, Man v Fat team of the season, organizer of the Midland Men's Fitness League. You're a busy boy, but
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
fair play to you. It's been great having you on the show today. We really appreciate it, and I hope everyone who's listening's enjoyed it. And yeah, we will see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.